It's 7:05, and I know there may well be other people joining us, but we've got well over 34, 35 people here, so it's fantastic to see you all. I'm Jolyon Mitchell, and I'm chairing this evening. I work at the University of Edinburgh, and I specialise in religion, violence, and peace building with particular reference to the arts. And it's just great to see you all here. Really lovely to see so many people, and a number of people I know, a number of people I haven't met before. I'm really looking forward to hearing from our presenters and also hearing from you. So if you want to make any comments or questions, do please feel free to send in some questions via the chat. Well, there'll be a chance if you want to talk aloud perhaps at the end, but you might prefer just to send in the chat. A lot of people comment on the books in the background. I always tease and say they aren't really books, they're just sort of posters to make the books behind. But in a way, what's exciting is that each of those books, there's a whole section on peace building and religion, and some of the themes that we're looking at tonight resonate with some of the books, but I always think of a book as an introduction or window into to one or many people's lives, and it's so exciting to hear some of the stories and read a little bit about some of the stories of the scholars, practitioners, artists who are going to speak this evening. This is actually the first of a series of peace crane events, and it's tied in with the Peace Crane exhibition at St. John's Church on Princes Street. I know many of you have already been to that exhibition, but if you haven't, it's quite extraordinary. There's 144,000 peace cranes. Now, something that is about to happen to the left of my computer, which is going to disturb everyone. Someone is printing out on my printer some homework. So excuse me if there's a bit of noise on stage left here, but we'll just have to deal with that. A moment, so it'll pause for a sec. So excuse me. Anyway, I won't turn it off, but it will just come. I wish it was music playing in the background, but we'll hear a bit more music in a moment. So anyway, going on, what we're going to be doing is there'll be an opportunity. Oh yes, a number of you are saying yes, you've seen the Peace Crane events, which is great. That's still open at the moment. It runs till about November the 13th. It's open from 1 till 3 in normal times. Do recommend it. It reflects on, in a very visceral and vivid and colourful way, the bombing of Hiroshima in the Second World War, but also in a very memorable way. There's a video exhibition there. I do recommend it to you if you haven't seen it. And in a way, it's a good example of peace building in the arts, and that's what we're looking at today, in particular relation to Yemen. And I suppose some of the themes that we'll be looking at tie in with a lot of work around peace building in the arts, and it helps us to remember wisely. It helps us to remember differently. It helps us to think about how we bear witness to past violence. It also helps us to think about how art can transform violence, as well as interrogate or question it. But perhaps most excitingly, it can also help us to imagine peaceful futures. Now, I know we could explore each of those ideas about remembering wisely, bearing witness, transforming violence, and imagining peaceful futures, but I want to put those out as just starting points. And I'd like to now say thank you to all of you for being here. I know a number of people have joined since I've begun speaking. It's really good to have you with us. As I say, feel free to share. I think someone want to say something there or add something before I hand over to David. No. Okay, that's great. Okay, well, I'm going to say thank you, and I'll be coming in at various stages, but I am now going to hand over to David Somerville. David. I can't hear you, David, at the moment, so that maybe means that you're muted.
Of course, I need to unmute myself.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to mute myself now, so that's great. Over to you.
Friends, it's just lovely to have so many here this evening. Thank you for coming. I'm one of the trustees of the Peace and Justice Centre, and I'm also a member of South East Scotland Area Meeting at Quaker, and a member of the Edinburgh group of Campaign Against the Arms Trade. And so it's with all those three roles that I'm especially delighted about joining you this evening, and in a particular special role to make an award which is in the memory of two very special people who were instrumental in bringing the P&J to where we are now. In 1980, at a time when cruise missiles were being brought to Molesworth and to Greenham Common, 8 Peace and Justice centres were established across Scotland. Just ours, the P&J, remains now, shining a light in Scotland. And we've broadened immensely to take a wide range of concerns. Jane will pop the link to the Peace and Justice website, and you will see that there are half a dozen main concerns that we have. All through this, we've been upheld by amazing work of individuals as staff, our part-time staff, but also individual volunteers. And absolutely crucial for many years, literally decades, Geoffrey Carnell, a former colleague of Jolyon at the university, lecturer, he was a volunteer. He was secretary of the trustees of the P&J. And then when Geoffrey died, his widow Elizabeth Seal Carnell carried on his work. This was at a time when the P&J was based in the lower level of the St. John's Church at the west end of Princes Street. So it's particularly appropriate that we make this award in the name of Geoffrey and Elizabeth Seal Carnell to an organisation which is making such a difference, again, in their own country, holding a light of peace and peace building. This is our strapline now. We are trying to build peace, a culture of peace in Scotland. And we recognise Mwatana for human rights as holding a light, building peace against all the odds in Yemen. The other organisation that I'm involved in, Campaign Against the Arms Trade, has been nominated with Mwatana for human rights by the Quaker Peace and Social Witness in the UK and American Friends Service Commission Committee for the Nobel Peace Prize 2021. And so maybe this November we will find if they've been chosen. But just the fact that those two Quaker organizations have recognized Mwatana is very important to us. And so we're recognizing this. Now Jane will show up the formal certificate that we're awarding. We're making a small donation of practical support to Mwatana. And so in formal terms, through the ether, I pass this to Radhya.
Sorry, David, I've by mistake made Jolyon host, which means I can't screen share. Jolyon, is there any chance you could make me host again? I think you just have to hover over my name and then you've got the option to make me host again.
You can screen share now.
Oh, right, okay. But I would like to be able to host so I can do other things.
Yes.
Yeah, let me find that.
Do that. I'm just finding your name now. This is very exciting. This is like live because it's Jane Carnell, isn't it? No, it's not. Sorry, I've got you. Oh, great. Okay. I just need to make you host here. Thank you for your patience.
There we are. So it's with great pleasure, and normally we would be shaking hands and recognizing that there's extraordinary work that Mwatana, that Radhya, and other colleagues, of course, in Yemen, the work that you are doing. In the name of Jeffrey and Elizabeth, we thank you for that. We give more power to your elbow, and we wish you peace in your country. And I pass now to you, Radhya.
Thank you, David. Well, it's like, it means a lot to us, not only me, but the whole team in Mwatana, the whole 100 men and women who are working in the ground in order to promote peace in their own way, which is the angle of human rights. Such recognition, it just makes us feel like we are seen in the middle of a war that is wanted to be forgotten, but it's not, because of people like you, because of the international civil society in general that have never let Mwatana down, and the people of Yemen. Thank you. And so peace is a very beautiful word, and also art is a very beautiful word, but conflict is ugly. So I don't know how to combine both things. We are in the middle of war, but even in the middle of war, to have people who still can practice the art, it's a kind of resistance, and it's a window to life. Therefore, I say thank you also for Shada and Nasser for the work they are doing. I was thinking how to show you the beauty of Yemen, and also to show you the ugly practices and the conducts of parties to the conflict. So I choose one of our documentaries, which is Raised to the Ground, that it will give you like virtually a picture of Yemen, and also it will give you like let you know how this beauty is attacked by all parties to the conflict. So we will go to the film now, and I will talk to you again.
Thanks, Radhya. Just to say, apologies if this film lags a bit.
Radhya, thank you very much. When you say lags, do you mean it just takes a moment to play in, I assume?
No, it just means sorry, I'm now sharing it's taking a while to find the right thing to share screen, but it's just that it possibly might be a bit slow when it's showing, but I'm hoping it's going to be okay.
Okay, great. That's fine. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience.
Yemen is the cradle to one of the oldest centers of civilization in the world. Although Yemen's history has included conflict, the current war has exposed Yemeni's cultural heritage and cultural properties to unprecedented looting and destruction. Here we highlight some of the ways in which the warring parties have destroyed Yemen's cultural property, leaving historical sites in ruins and devastating Yemeni's cultural heritage in an environment of almost complete impunity. Al-Qasmi neighborhood in Old Sana City. Old Sana City is located in the middle of the Yemeni plateau, along the western slope of Mount Nuqum. The first mention of the city of Sana'a was in ancient Yemeni inscriptions dating back to the 1st century AD. The Ottomans had the most significant impact to the construction of Old Sana City, as it remains today. Newsmen say the city of Sana'a has been inhabited for about 2,500 years. UNESCO in 1980 conference decided to launch an international campaign towards preserving the city. Old Sana City was inscribed to the World Heritage List in 1986. At dawn on Friday, June 12, 2015, a Saudi UAE-led coalition airstrike hit Al-Qasimi neighborhood, destroying 4 historic houses and causing significant damage to the other nearby homes. On Friday, September 18, 2015, at night, another airstrike hit a home in Al-Falahi neighborhood in Old Sana'a city. City of Barakash, the archaeological city Al-Jawf. Barakash, the archaeological city, was known in Musnad inscription as Yathal, is located to the west of paved Sana'a Marib Road, which runs toward Wadi Al-Jawf. According to inscription, Barakash was a prosperous city in the 50th century BC as a part of Marib Kingdom. In August 2014, the Ansarullah Houthi armed group took control of the Barakash archaeology site. In 2015 and 2016, witnesses reported that the ancient city was hit by multiple airstrikes carried out by the Saudi Arabia and UAE-led coalition, including on April 12, 2015, Wednesday, July 1, 2015, Tuesday, July 8, 2015, and Sunday, March 6, 2016. Attacks have caused enormous damage to the wall, towers, and temples of the city. Al-Ashrafiyya Mosque and Madrasa Taiz. Al-Ashrafiyya Mosque and Madrasa, one of the most famous and largest in Yemen. It was built in the southwestern part of Taiz city. Musnad scripts on its wall indicate that its construction was commissioned by Sultan Ashraf bin Abbas. The construction of Al-Ashrafiyya started in 1275 AD. It opened in 1382 AD, during the peak of the Rizalid dynasty. Al-Ashrafiyya is one of the most important religious schools in the Islamic history of Yemen. The mosque includes prayer halls, a madrasa, and the shrines of a number of kings.
Thank you so much for playing that, Radhya. I'm assuming that's where we did want to stop, wasn't it? Yeah, that's great. Radhya's being very humble here, and I perhaps will just do a belated, fuller introduction to her, because I think it's good to underline all the amazing work she's been involved in. She's the co-founder of Mwatana, I'm going to mispronounce that, Mwatana, Organization for Human Rights. Radhya was actually the winner of the 2020 Anna Politkovskaya Award in Poland. And in 2017, she briefed the UN Security Council about the conflict in Yemen, becoming the first Yemeni woman to ever do so. And she continued to call for a ban on arms delivery to both Yemen and Saudi Arabia. And in 2019, Radhya was named as one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. And in February of this year was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. So it's a real honor to have you with us, Radhya. I'm going to hand the baton, the digital baton, back to you now, and look forward to hearing you reflect further about the impact of the conflict on Yemen's cultural heritage. So over to you, and other issues as well.
Thank you. So these are the pictures of what is known today as the worst humanitarian man-made crisis in the world. In this film you have just seen was based in a report that's called Degradation of the History, a report by Mwatana. And all information, as all our reports, was based in a field investigative work. So we have conducted dozens of interviews, and we have done a lot of field visits to all the sites in order to document the responsibility of parties to the conflict on this specific issue that attacks the cultural property and heritage in Yemen. And then we have published the report. So we document, and then we publish, and we consider documentation very important because information is a power, and it can be the first step towards any work towards advocacy and accountability and even peace. In this report, while we're working in this report, although Yemen is under the war since many years, and it is like all the types of violations has been conducted by parties to the conflict. I mean, airstrikes, landmines, torture, enforced disappearance, child recruitment, and many, many types of violations, including using starvation as a weapon of war. We were surprised that people still very, very sad for what's happening to their cultural property. They feel sad. They understand the art. It's part of their life. It's part of their history. And we asked the people who've been living around these properties, and we were expecting people to say, we are dying of hunger. We are facing all of this. What is the importance of documenting what's happening to these sites of objects? But instead of that, we just felt how much people were very sad. They were talking about these properties as part of their families, as it's their own homes, and parties to the conflict, all of them, there are no clean hands in Yemen. They participated in whether attacking or using these properties for military purpose. And as all the other violations that's happening in Yemen, the huge lack of accountability didn't help to protect our heritage, as it didn't help to protect many preventable violations by all parties to the conflict. We document, we raise the voices of the victims, and we started in Mwatana to document for advocacy purposes, but within the years we started to document for accountability purposes, which is, and when we talk about accountability, we talk about criminal accountability. So impunity is not a destiny. We believe that we can change this with a very hard work, and we have been trying to track what is available internationally for accountability mechanisms, and we are digging the wall because the whole world is designed in a way that enhances impunity more than accountability. But as I said, it's not destiny. We, with our partners, working against this, and I'm sure as art is building peace, also human rights work is a step towards peace, and all together can work one day to bring sustainable peace to Yemen, I hope. And thank you to have me with you.
Radhya, thank you so much. It's really heartrending to both see that film and also to hear some of your story and insights. And thank you for raising some really important questions there, both about the role of the arts and the role of activism in Yemen and beyond as well. So thank you. As I said at the beginning, there's a chance for you to ask Radhya questions later on this evening. So feel free to send some in via the chat if you want to. We'll keep an eye on that. But now it's a delight for me to be able to introduce Kate Nevens. Kate Nevens is a freelance facilitator and researcher who specializes in gender, youth, peace and security and human rights. I think you're normally based in Edinburgh, but I think you're in London at the moment. Is that right? Yes. And I understand that you're also a consultant to the Yemen Policy Centre, and you're an experienced campaigner, particularly campaigning against the arms trade, and has also stood as a Green candidate in the Scottish Parliament elections. So
I have a lot of hats.
It's really good to hear about all your hats. And I'm going to hand over to you now to talk a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, but about the CARPO report, which is a very interesting report about broken people can't heal a nation. I think that's the title, but you can say more about it. I'm not going to say any more, even though I found it very helpful. So thank you. Over to you, Kate.
Thanks so much. So I'm here this evening with my Yemen Policy Centre hat on. So I'm Kate Nevens. I've been working with Yemeni youth groups, women's groups and activist groups since around 2009. And as we've heard, for over 6 years now, Yemen has been experiencing a really, truly devastating conflict. And as Radhya mentioned, huge swathes of Yemen's incredible architecture and cultural heritage has been destroyed. And at the same time, space for civil society, creative arts and freedom of expression has markedly shrunk, particularly in the northern areas of the country that are currently under the control of the Houthi movement or militia. At a national level, the peace process is at a standstill. However, when you start looking at a community level, you can actually see that there's a huge amount of activity there where community groups are helping mitigate some of the impacts of the conflict, they're documenting human rights violations, and they're helping build peace at a really local level. Initially, when the conflict broke out, that looked a lot like youth groups and women's groups helping provide their neighbours with food and water and fuel and even basic healthcare. But actually, as the conflict has gone on, that's now looking like peace education being run by these civil society groups, also community dialogues. And because in the work that I was doing, the youth and the women and the activists that I was working with kept talking about the arts. They kept talking about creative arts. They kept saying they'd like more space to do creative arts. They kept talking about the use of creative arts in the local peace building work that they were doing. So me and my colleagues Majed and Yazid, who live in Taiz and Aden in Yemen, respectively, and I believe Majed is actually on the call this evening, so if anyone has any questions from my Yemeni colleagues, Majid's here as well. We decided to spend a few months talking to artists about the role that arts were playing, directly and indirectly, in their peace building efforts. And perhaps unsurprisingly, the first thing that we found is that the conflict made life really, really difficult for artists in Yemen. It's not just, the conflict's not just explosive violence that's destroying the arts infrastructure, but it's also creating a really unsafe and divisive environment for artists to express themselves. It's really difficult for artists to move between cities because of some of the geographical divisions that have emerged or been exacerbated. It's really difficult to then collaborate with others to perform or to exhibit your work. In certain areas of the country, particularly some of the northern areas that I mentioned that are controlled by the Houthi group, local authorities are placing really big restrictions on what kind of artistic activities can take place. And it can be actually really, really unsafe to practice your art. You've got armed groups, not just in the north, but also in the south, closing down arts spaces, confiscating equipment, interrogating artists, arresting and abducting and potentially torturing artists, especially if they're considered to be in some way in opposition to what the local authority or local conflict group stands for. This is particularly difficult for women because we've seen an emergence of an even more conservative and even more repressive forces, which there's always been some difficulties with women being able to perform their art in public, but that has got much, much worse, and you're seeing women being targeted as well. Conflict actors are also using art to promote violence and to promote their sides of the conflict. So you're seeing conflict actors using street art to promote or try and recruit people, and also poetry. There's a long tradition in Yemen of using poetry in politics, but also in war. And there's a lot of Zawamil type of poetry being written that is praising various conflict actors and praising the violence. And artists are also, like everyone in Yemen, really suffering from the humanitarian crisis and the lack of livelihoods, lack of being able to get income. And a lot of the international funding that was available for things like the arts went away, basically, when the conflict broke out. However, despite all of these huge difficulties, we found that there was an immense amount of activities still happening, creative arts activities still happening in Yemen, even in the worst affected areas of Yemen. And people, so artists, but also civil society activists and organizations, were using arts to promote peace in lots of different ways. So I'm just going to talk through a couple of the different ways in which we found that people were using the creative arts to promote peace. So Jane, if you could share my first slide. So one of the ways in which artists, if you could make that full screen, that would be great. Fab. So one of the ways in which a number of artists around Yemen are using their art to promote peace is actually to advocate for an end to the violence and an end to the social injustices and the violations and abuses. Probably the most prominent artist is this street artist called Murad Subai. He's probably the most high profile. And he's been doing graffiti campaigns. If you could go back to that initial one, please, Jane. He's been doing graffiti campaigns that are highlighting and campaigning against arms exports, against drone strikes, against airstrikes, and against the general devastation inflicted by the conflict. This particular campaign on the screen is the Ruins campaign, where he with a group of other street artists, he traveled around the country and painted on the walls where there had been an airstrike. On this wall, we can see flowers for 27 people, civilians, that were killed in one particular airstrike near Sana'a airport, and that included 15 children. So he's highlighting some of the abuses and violations that are happening. Cartoonists and cartoons are being used quite frequently for a similar purpose. Jane, if you could flick to my next one. So this is Rashad Al-Samai, and he has drawn a number of cartoons to highlight what is happening in his hometown of Taiz. So in Taiz, the Houthis was under a siege from the Houthis for some time, some years. And this cartoon is showing the lack of freedom of movement that people in Taiz had. But there's a whole series of really amazing cartoons that this cartoonist has drawn. And some of them are really quite dark, and some of them are quite humorous. So he does satirical, playful cartoons about the siege on Taiz as well. And there's lots and lots of short stories and short films that are coming out that in English and in Arabic that document the suffering and the destruction and the confusion caused by the war, which really have a sense of like trying to warn and prevent future generations from being drawn into the same kinds of activities. Another area where we found a lot of art being produced that promoted peace was women artists in particular doing art to promote gender justice and a voice for marginalized groups in Yemen. So if we could switch to the next slide. Okay, thank you, Jane, for being my being my slide person. So this is Haifa Subai. This is actually the sister of the graffiti artist that we saw earlier. And she's done a huge amount of street art in both Sana'a in the north of the country and in Aden in the south of the country, to show the suffering and the pain of women and children during the war. And she has a team of women that work with her to create these paintings. We're also seeing a number of civil society organizations come together and involve women in painting and drawing and music and dance classes. So go to the next slide. This is a workshop for women to tell their own stories through paint. And this is in the east of the country in a place called Hadramaut, which is one of the more traditionally conservative areas of Yemen, but actually there's been a flurry of arts coming out of this area, because it's been slightly less affected by the conflict to a certain degree. We also talked to artists and civil society groups about the use of the arts to help process trauma at both an individual and a collective level. So lots of the artists we talked a lot about inner peace, and told us that producing their work helped them process the devastation of the war and begin to heal from what they've experienced, just on their own basis. And that was true for artists in Yemen, but also Yemeni artists that have fled Yemen and now live elsewhere. There's a lot of artists in the diaspora that are also using art to heal from their own trauma. If Jane, you could switch to my next one. Unlike other conflicts, which I'm sure Jolyon could maybe talk to us a little bit about, there's actually less collective trauma using the arts in Yemen, perhaps because there's not much of a mental health provision at all of any kind in Yemen on a professional basis. But there are lots of groups that are beginning to use things that look like art therapy, particularly with children and in children's safe spaces. And there are some groups like the organisation Means in Hadramaut that are beginning to think about using things like participatory theatre as a way of communities coming together to tell their stories and process what they've been through. So I think that's something that we might see more of in the coming few years. Another area where we saw a lot of art being produced is art, so music and paintings, theatre, that was promoting or is promoting values like tolerance, coexistence and equality, and also bringing people together to foster dialogue within communities that have been torn apart by the conflict and between communities that have been torn apart by the conflict, but on a very light touch level. Could I go to the next slide? Could you go to the next slide, Jane? So this is a photo by Ali Al-Sunida, this is one of his most popular photos of all time, I believe. And he is saying that this photo for him, it conveys to people that no matter how long people live through this conflict, through disagreement and through grudges, there comes a moment where, he says, where we must place forgiveness and tolerance above all. We found that there was a lot of artists that were conveying these kinds of messages at both a community and a national level through the art that they're producing. We also found that there was a number of art collectives and organisations that were bringing people together, particularly young people, to learn music or dance or theatre, and to collaborate, and even into poetry competitions as well. There's some really amazing poetry competitions happening where people are talking about their differences and working through their differences and really transforming that kind of local level conflict. So finally, and probably most importantly, we found that the arts were really bringing back joy and hope to these communities that have been beset by conflict. They were really there were lots of festivals being put on, traditional music and dance, but also comedy performances, including comedy performances by women in places like Tayez, that were really giving people a respite from their daily struggles. So you've got communities that have really been fighting to survive for the last 6 years or so, but there's still space. People are still creating this space to come together in a sort of joyful and hopeful way. And I know Jolyon, I think at the very beginning, mentioned imagining new futures. So that was something that really came across to us. There's a lot of writers in Yemen and a lot of visual artists in Yemen that are really telling stories that imagine new futures for Yemen and really give a lot of hope. So I want to end on that sort of hopeful note. Jane, if you could flick forward two, actually, that was a music session. So this is art by Saber Jalas, and she takes photos of explosions caused by airstrikes in this case, and draws over them with pictures of joy and happiness and hope. And I want to end with a quote from Saber. So she says, in a country where there is no art or cinema or theatre, there will be violence. When the new generation can practice their passions, it will become impossible for them to carry weapons, because instead there is something beautiful that occupies that time. So I wanted to leave everyone on that more joyful note. And yeah.
Kate, thank you so much. That was really excellent and very thought-provoking, very rich, and maybe we want to revisit the report and learn more about those artists. So thank you so much.
Quite a long report, everybody, but I am going to put a link. I distilled it into a few small. I'll put a link in the chat.
Another great, and really, really good to hear your reflections after hearing Radhya's reflections as well. So as I say, please do come in with questions if you want in the chat room, which we'll come to a little bit later. It's now, for me, a real privilege to introduce two fellows, both of whom are fellows in residence here at the University of Edinburgh, at IASH, which stands for the Institute of Advanced Study in Humanities, which is just off the Meadows. It's a beautiful central residence for academics and artists from all over the world. And it's lovely to have you with us, and thank you so much for joining us. So I'll introduce firstly Shatha. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Shatha Altowai. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No, it's lovely to have you here. And Saber Bamatraf, I hope I'm getting that correctly.
Exactly, that's correct.
Oh, okay. Let me begin by introducing Shatha, and then I'll introduce Saber as well, and then I'll hand over to you. As I said, they're both fellows in residence at the moment at the Institute at IASH here in Edinburgh. Shatha has been a visual artist since 2014, and I've actually been really enjoying looking at your work. This is a catalogue here, and the white canvas, and you can maybe talk about that if we've got time. Shatha was awarded an IIE Artist Protection Fund Fellowship in 2021, and in July of this year, you won, correct me if I'm wrong, but the John Byrne Award, and you were selected from nearly 300 creative entries. So congratulations on that award. It's great to have you with us. It's also great to have Saber with us, who is also a fellow in residence at IASH, as I mentioned, here in Edinburgh. And in a country that has no music schools, Saber is a self-taught pianist and composer, and I've been really enjoying listening to your playing of the piano, both in lots of different contexts. So let me hand over to you now, because I think you're going to help us think further about this theme of peace building the arts in Yemen. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming here to the evening. I'm going to tell you about the movie which we're going to show it here. It's Voice of the Rainbow. It's a documentary film that highlights our art practice as a married couple. It shows also the inspiration behind our art and how we turn the art into a language or a lifestyle that promotes our mutual respect and based on our freedom beliefs. So, Saber.
Yes, thank you for having us for this event. The film was basically showing our art story that had started since we got married in 2014. So that film, Voice of the Rainbow, was supposed to be screened in Karama Film Festival in October 2018, beside other short films. But unfortunately, because of its poster, if you can have the slide or the picture of the poster. So the picture was the announcement for the film festival, and as a way for the people to know the film that was within other short films as well. So as you can see, this picture, like it caused chaos and outrage in Yemen back then in 2018, which led at the end to suspend the whole film festival because this picture was taken and used by by one party of the conflict in the north, which is Houthis party, and it is media outlets. So they use it as a tool to spread rumors against us and against the whole festival, that the film is part of the enemy's agenda, and as well the film like it contains inappropriate scenes. That's what they were saying, and the film also was trying to destroy the values of the society and morals and so on. So that was the whole propaganda was about such things, and there was a rage in the social media, and sadly it was going to take the film festival was one of its kind in Yemen, that an international film festival will be in Yemen, in a war-torn country, which was a positive thing for the people, but sadly the whole thing was suspended. So and this film actually that you are about to watch now has changed our life after that incident, and we received a lot of threats and incitements against us, and which led both of us to lower our activities in the civil society as artists. And last 2 years we suspended from participating in any event or launching any art galleries in public until we reach here in Edinburgh. So I think if we may now show the film.
Thank you so much. So I think Jane is now.
انك تربط اللون بالنغمة، تشوف لون اخضر تسمع نغمة ري. فشدة ترجم المقطوعات اللي انا اقدمها الى الوان وطلع لوحة فنية. والعكس، انا استوحي لوحات كذا واحولها الى نغمة موسيقية. كيف انظر انا للمرأة بذاتها؟ كيف انا انظر لامي، لاختي، لزميلتي في الجامعة؟ احط نفسي مكانها أنا. كيف النظرة بشكل عام في اليمن؟ كيف وضعها؟ هل هي عايشة بقناعات؟ هل هي معها طموحات؟ هل هي سعيدة في القيام بالأعمال المنزلية هذه؟ مجبرة أم غير مجبرة؟ أم هي قابلتها كأمر واقع؟
الناس معاهم باترن معين، نمط معين، لازم كل البنات يعيشوا عليه عشان تكون مخلقة على قولتهم. في البنت اللي ما شاء الله اللي يسموها شو يسموها مجتهدة، إنه تسوي طبخة حلوة، أكل حلو، تربي عيال. هذه البنت المثالية بالنسبة للمجتمع اليمني. أنتِ مفروض تكرسي حياتك لزوجك، للآخرين، تجيبي عيال، تربي. هذا هو وظيفتك.
من حق أي إنسان في هذا الوجود إنه لازم يعيش بالطريقة اللي هو يتمناها، من غير أي فرض من أب أو أم أو مجتمع أو زوج.
أنا عارفة إن إحنا عايشين في مجتمع حافظ، عليه تقييد وعليه قواعد سواها المجتمع وبناها المجتمع لنا. بس كوني قوية واثقة من نفسك، لا تخليش حد يحطمك أو يقلل من قدراتك.
قلت التغيير يبتدأ في الزواج إن شاء الله. توصل له اقتناع إنه خلاص الزواج، أنا بجلس مع مرتي أصارحها من أول يوم، أجلس معها 1 2 3 4، أنت تكوني حرة في شيء.
بنت في بيئة محافظة مستحيل أكون مستقلة. من يوم أنا صغيرة لازم أكون متكلة ومعتمدة على الآخرين في كل حاجة، في كل شيء، حتى في توصيلتي للمدرسة أو توصيلتي للجامعة.
واحد من طموحات اللي كان يعتبر فانتسي، شيء من الخيال بالنسبة لشخص عايش في اليمن في مجتمع محافظ، يكون معي بيانو. أول شيء أحقق حلمي، أخذت البيانو. إنه يكون هذا البيانو في قاعة الزفاف وأعزف لزوجتي أثناء ما تدخل للقاعة. فكان هذا واحد شيء من الطموحات اللي كنت أطمح لها.
بعد الزواج صابر خرج الأشياء اللي ما كنتش أتوقع أنها تكون فيني. يعني دائما لما أقول له بسوي شيء يقول لي أوكي أنت قدها جو هيد. يعني لما كان بيعزف لحاله أنا كنت أتفرج، يعني عاجبني الوضع، بس إنه أنا يعني بتفرج وهو بيعزف بتخيل أشياء كثير. فما توقعت أبدا إنه ممكن يوم من الأيام ممكن أرجع أرسم مرة ثانية، إنه حاجة مستحيل نوي. يعني من عمري 13 سنة آخر مرة رسمت. يعني فاستغرب إنه ليش بتجيبي أسامي كده؟ قلت له أصلا أنت بتعزف، أنا بشوف أحيانا بنت، أحيانا بشوف مطر، أحيانا بشوف جبال، على حسب الجو حق المعزوفة. فقال لي خلاص طيب ارسمي. قلت له لا مستحيل، يعني مستحيل، يعني خيال ثاني وما يجيب الواقع مش انصدم من نفسي. فواجهني بالموضوع وقال اليوم الأيام جاوا معاه الأشياء، قال لي يلا ارسمي. خلاص لما شفت لنا حاجات قدامي بس ما بقيت أخبط يعني. بدأت أتعلم على شوية، أفتح اليوتيوب أتعلم كيف أرسم على حبة حبة. بعد الزواج فعلا موهبة الرسم طلعت، ثقتي بنفسي زادت، أحس إنه ما في شيء حاجة قدامي يمكن تعيقني، بالعكس إنه بقدر أي شيء مخططة له أو شيء بقدر أسويه، وحاسة إنه في حد بيدعمني، في باك اب عندي.
فهم الناس إنه هي كذا أساسا، هي هذه شخصيتها. أنا اللهم بس جبت لها الحرية، أعطيت لها المساحة فقط، وهي اللي وصلت. فاللي في بالك you can do it، أي شيء.
بس أنا اخترت طريق ثاني، إنه يعني طيب دراستي هذه اللي سويتها، إيش سويت أنا؟ إيش سويت في حياتي؟ يعني أوكي درست وبعدين إيش عملت للمجتمع؟ إيش عملت؟ إيش بصمة حطيتها؟ فحسيت إنه كأنه ما فيش معي وجود، أو كأنه ما فيش معي صوت.
واحد يعيش في قناعاته، كل واحد له طموحاته، بس في أشياء مشتركة تجمع بين الزوجين. هنا ممكن لازم يكون في الاتفاق بينهم، يجلسوا يتناقشوا. موضوع الإنجاب ناس كثير تتدخل في الموضوع، هي متى بنشوف عيالكم، متى بنشوف البيبي، متى، ومش قراري أنا لأنني رجل أقدر خلاص أقول بالغصب عليها أنها تنجب، ولا قرارها هي في النهاية.
شفت فترة كانت شدة القصف وشدة الوضع والخوف لهذا. شفت أخوي الصغير عمره تقريبا هذيك الفترة 13 سنة أو 12 سنة. يعني هذا الشيء أكد لي، يعني خلاني أزيد على إني أصر إنه ما أشوفش أطفال في هذه الفترة. إنه كان يأخذ زاوية ويغطي على نفسه ويقول اقتلوني اقتلوني، مش يستنى الموت، اقتلوني ايش تخلص. فهذا الشيء مرة أثر فيني.
هذا الشيء أثر على الطفولة، هذا الشيء أثر على ابنك، هذا الشيء له تداعيات. لما يكبر ابنك ما يكونش بعقلية سليمة، ما يكونش يكون يميل للعنف.
الموضوع يعني يحتاج له عقلانية مش عواطف. ففي ناس كثير يقولوا لا انتم ما تشوفوا اطفال، خلاص انتم بتبنوا. يعني لا، نحن نشتي اطفال، نحب الاطفال. فحتى انه صابر جاب لي في خطوبة هدية، فما حد يصدق اللي الان الناس بيشوفوها ما يصدقوش انه جاب لي جزمة سميناها جزمة بنتنا وسميناها ومعانا اسمنا، هذه الجزمة حقها. بس مش وقتها. حتى أنا عملت يعني كنت أكلمها دائما، حتى أحيانا لما أحس إنه والله بتعب
شخصيتي وشخصيتها متشابهة في الأمور التجريدية، أنه نحاول نحن نعبر على الأشياء بطريقة غير عادية، مش بالكلام، مش بالحرف، مش بالرسمة، مش بالصورة. انتقلنا أنه مش بالصوت حتى.
كان ولا شيء ياخذ اللوحة يحطها قدام البيانو، يتفرج للوحة. أحس إحساس حلو إنه أنت بتترجم الآن اللي بتسويه، فكنا نعيش يعني في بيتي هللة من حالنا خاصة فيها، إنه من هو بيترجم وأنا برسم، فشيء جميل.
بعد ما دخلت في البداية في عالم الرسم واللوحات وأخذت الموضوع بجدية، شيء جميل جدا إنه في صار بيننا على ما يقولوا السينستيجيا معينة. هي السينستيجيا ظاهرة عصبية يعني، ففي ناس أشخاص فيهم هذه الظاهرة، بس نحن ما يفتهمش من الموضوع إن نحن مصابين بالسينستيجيا هذه الظاهرة. لا، نحن بس قرأنا على هذه الظاهرة كثير وتعمقنا فيها وحبيناها. الموضوع إنك تربط اللون بالنغمة، تشوف لون أخضر تسمع نغمة ري، تشوف لون أصفر تسمع أو طعم أو أي شيء، فالحواس تمتزج في منظور الشخص. فبكوننا زوجين وفنانين مشتركين حبينا إن احنا نستوحي هذه الظاهرة ونعكسها على الفن اللي نقدمه. فشدت ترجم المقطوعات اللي أنا أقدمها إلى ألوان وطلع لوحة فنية، والعكس أنا أستوحي لوحات شدا وأحولها إلى نغمة موسيقية.
أنا من زمان أعرف إني أحب الرسم، وبس ما توقعت أبداً إني بدخل في مجال الموسيقى خالص. بس بعد الأيام ما شفت صابر بيتعامل مع لغة الموسيقى، لغة النغمات، قلت ليش لا ما أشوف كيف إيش اللغة بتكلمها وألهم مخيلتي أكثر، بحيث إنه يكون معي أكثر من شيء بيحفز هذا الخيال، تريجر على ما يقولوا. فدخلت أتعلم الكمان، وفعلا ساعدني يعني it enhanced my imagination. فهذا الشيء برضه حفز صابر إنه يألف مقطوعات فيها مقطوعات خاصة بالكمان عشان أدخل معه بمعزوفة مشتركة.
الفن هو من الجماليات، والجمال يعتبر قيمة إنسانية كبيرة. فكل ما تقدمت الشعوب والمجتمعات ارتقت فيها الفنون بكافة أنواعها.
كلمات تصف الفن: سعادة، أمل، حلم، خيال، خروج من الواقع، ترفيه عن النفس، تنفيس عن غضب، تنفيس عن حزن، أو تعبير عن السعادة، تعبير عن واقع، انعكاس لروح الحب اللي داخل، أو انعكاس للمعاناة اللي داخل الشخص.
كل شخص في مجاله يحاول يوصل رسائل معينة. فأنا من وجهة نظري كفنان أوصل رسائل وأعكس الواقع والقضايا اللي أشوفها في مجتمعي بالفن، بالموسيقى. مع أنا وشدا أوصلها برضو كفن مشترك، نحاول نوصل رسالة عبر الفن، مزج فني الموسيقى والفن مع بعض، ونقدم هذه القضايا بطريقة فنية.
الرسم ما يعرفش لا كبير ولا صغير، الرسم يخاطب جميع المستويات بكل الأعمار، بكل الثقافات، كل اللغات. رسمتي عن اللي مختصة بقضايا المرأة أثرت في كثير بنات، وأكثر من واحدة تيجي تقول لي يا شدا هذه تمثلني، هذه الرسمة تمثلني، هذه الرسمة أنا. تكلمت برضو عن قضايا النازحين وكيف المعاناة اللي بتحصل لهم وقت ما ينزحوا من بيتهم ويسيبوا بلادهم وبيئتهم لمنطقة ثانية زي الغريبين. صح إنهم في بلدهم بس هم غريبين فعلا، سابوا كل شيء، سابوا ذكريات، سابوا أهل وراهم عشان نعيش والبقاء.
سلسلة النازحين لشذا عدة لوحات تشتغل فيهم، يمكن تأخذ شهور كثيرة، فتقريبا لحد الآن وصلت 2 مقطوعات شبه مكتملة يعني من معاناة النازحين. إحدى الرسائل اللي نحاول نحن نحارب من أجل الحفاظ عليها هي الطفولة. الأطفال في اليمن في حالة مزرية جدا، يعني نسبة التجنيد للأطفال كبيرة جدا. نحاول نحن نحسسه بالطفولة، في عندي معزوفات طفولية الطفل يسمعها يذكره بالطفولة الحقيقية اللي كانت أيام زمان في أيام السلم، يذكره يحسسه إنه فعلا في زيه زي الطفل في أي بلد ثاني. في ناس عايشة، في ناس تكافح، في ناس ما زالت تمارس الفن في أحلى الظروف، في ناس ما زالت تقدم الجماليات.
فعلا لما واحد يسوي لنفسه حاجة هو نفسه فيها يحس حتى لو في تعب يحس بلذة التعب، ولذة النجاح ما تجيش إلا بعد مشوار طويل.
Thank you so much for showing us that film. I don't know if you want to make any comments before we open up for questions. Having seen that film probably many times, I've enjoyed seeing it now. That's only my second time, but I got even more out of it the second time, actually, so thank you.
Thank you. We are glad that you loved it, and I hope all the audience have enjoyed the film, or at least have having an overview about our art practice when we were in Yemen. And so anything you want to say?
I'm quite emotional now because it just evokes my memories.
Yeah, I understand. Well, in that case, if that's okay, what I'll do is I'll open now for a time of questions and comments. But I want to say thank you to each of our speakers, to Radhya, to Kate, to Shatha and Saber. Thank you so much. I've got 1 or 2 questions just before, while people are perhaps sending in questions. I've noticed 1 or 2 have already come in. But Kate, I noticed that a couple of your colleagues who were co-authors on the paper have arrived or are here. And Kate, I don't know if you would like to introduce them, and they may have something they want to add, comments or questions themselves. So Kate, I'm going to pass it to you and let you just introduce your 2 colleagues.
So my colleague Majed is definitely still with us. He's calling in from Tyres. Hi Majed. He's got his logo of the youth organisation he works for, YBOD. And Yazid is calling in from Aden, and I think they don't really have electricity or internet in Aden at the moment, so I think he might be dropping in and out.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't know if Majed, you'd like to say anything? If we still got you. Both internet and
actually, thank you so much. Yeah, do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you well, and it's fantastic to have you join us. Thank you very much for being with us. We're honoured by your presence.
Yeah, actually, it's thank you so much for this opportunity to attend. And actually, regarding arts and culture in Yemen, there is also one of the most, I think, one of the points that we should take into consideration, which is the artists from rural areas and marginalized groups. And actually, they are neglected in terms of funding and in terms of considering them and in terms of promoting their works either at local and international level. And actually, because of this, this made their issues less represented and less well known to the world and to the people in general. Whatever artists we know mostly are the same. I mean, more or less, are those who are well known by many of the actors and partners, while those less known are still less known, and still their works are not promoted, and their works are not known to other actors and other partners. And this is one of the points that actors and partners should take into consideration in terms of targeting and in terms of funding in the future.
Thank you very much. Kate, I don't know if you want to respond or add to that, but thank you. Was it, I didn't quite hear your name. Was it Majid?
Majid.
Majid, it was Majid. Okay, Majid, thank you.
That's a really helpful point, Majid. There's a lot of artists out there in rural areas of Yemen and who are active, and artists from more marginalized groups, women, but also Mahamasheen, an ethnic minority in Yemen. So yeah, it's a really good point.
No, thank you.
Yeah, and this actually also, caused negligence and ignorance of the different type of arts existing in rural areas and popular arts, you know. So it's not only representing the artists and their works, but also and their issues, but also the forms of arts themselves.
Thank you. Great. There may well be things you'd like to comment on further as the discussion goes on, but we've got a question that's come in from Finland, from Sia, and this was addressed, I think, in the first instance to Radhya. I'm going to read it, and then Sia, you may want to add something if you want, but you write, clearly the deliberate attack on cultural heritage is in violence of international law. And you're asking, what's the main rationale for these attacks in the case of Yemen, and why are particular sites selected for such attacks? It's a really interesting question. I thought that when I watched the films, I thought, why on earth are they bombing a World Heritage Site? So thank you very much. Sia, before I hand over to Radhya, is there anything you'd like to add to that or to highlight from your question?
No, thank you.
No, you're happy. Okay, great. Radhya, I hope that question was clear. Do you need me to repeat anything, or did you? Yeah, great.
So thank you. So I don't know if the word rational is the right word here, because nothing rational about the whole war, but yes, some of the historical sites were used at the beginning by one party to the conflict for military purposes. They acquired it or they use it, and then it was attacked by another party to the conflict. Many of the incidents we have documented, it was like a complex violations for the same side because of both parties to the conflict. For example, Houthis, who are an armed group, they will use it for military purposes, and then the Saudi and Emirati-led coalition will strike it. This is one maybe rational reason. And there are another sites that were attacked, whether by the Saudi and Emirati coalition or by the Houthi armed group, for no known reason. So like there is no military target or military purposes or military advantage for attacking them. They were just destroyed, and we don't know why. And some of these sites that we have documented also was like attacked by some fanatic armed groups. It was attacked like the church, like some of the graves. It was attacked only because the state collapsed in Yemen because of the war, and there is armed groups are controlling many parts of Yemen, if not all. And then these things started to be more clear to attack heritage sites or regional properties or objects just for fanatic purposes.
Thank you. That's interesting. And no, interesting is not the right word, actually. It's really sad. Interesting is too soft a word, isn't it? If you think about the implications of what you're saying, and that not just the history, but the people living in the buildings, and the reason for doing that. So thank you. So do you want to come back on that at all?
No,
may I
there
add
are so
something?
many questions to ask, so we want to leave space for many. Yes, Radhya.
Sure. Yeah.
I will send here the what to call it, the link of the report, and the report explains each attack, all the circumstances around it, and it says about the site itself, and also how it was attacked and all the details. And we collected through the interviews we have conducted and the field visits. So it's there, I guess.
Thank you. Now, Francis Guy, there's a question to everyone, and I guess it's focused particularly towards practicing artists, but it would be interesting to hear everyone's response to this. Are you managing to create anything in Edinburgh? So perhaps if I could ask, perhaps if we could go firstly to Shatha and Saber to respond on this, because I'd be really interested to hear the kind of creative thing. And also maybe to follow on from that question as well, how do you find creating in this context? Well, obviously it's different, but does it change the shape and the form of your art here and then when you're back home?
Yeah, I'm planning to do another art exhibition under the title of Scratch Identities. It will be held in October. But the first exhibition here was the white canvas, and me doing an art exhibition in a safe environment and having no concern or anxiety of there's something will stop my art exhibition, or any authority or group will just come and stop the whole event. It's really felt so strange for me, and for the first time I felt I am safe with my paintings. So I hope that things will get better in Yemen. So if every artist, deserve to feel the same way I felt that day.
That's really interesting. Thank you. And yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, this is from the White Canvas exhibition. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I'll just use that as one example to, I don't know if you just want to talk for a moment about that piece. Sorry? That's really unfair. I haven't warned you about that.
Yeah. This is about, as you see, like crowded women. These are the mothers of
those who have been killed.
Yes, the mothers of those who have been killed in the war, and they are like, you see the red mark on their heads, it resembles the blood of their children, and they are going out of to resist about what's going on during the wartime.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very nice to see those, and we look forward to perhaps hearing more about your exhibition in October. Would you like to add anything, Saber?
Yes. Yes. In the war and in the hardships, like the hardships can reduce number of artists and can actually reduce creativity as well. But when you go to the safe havens and you experience art from different perspective, this you find it is more interesting. Like you have a lot of things stable around you. You have internet connection. You have all the basic needs, because in Yemen you have to strive for everything. For the basic needs, you have to consider the risks that you might face in case you do that event or that concert. So, but here it's amazing, and in terms of the production that we have made here, besides Shada's exhibitions and paintings, I have also composed several music as singles, and also released my second album, which is inspired from the peace environment here in Edinburgh. It's titled "Embrace from Edinburgh," which I got the inspiration from the nature and from the mountains, from the environment here in Edinburgh, which you can tell when you hear it, like there is a peaceful rhythm, not like the ones that I have been composing in Yemen during the war, which you can find like a bit of marching and a bit of resilience and so on. So it is a good experience, and many also to come in the October event. We will have a play, and we will have an exhibition of visual arts, and also we'll have a musical concert in the Southside Community Center. Advertisement will be available within these two days.
That's great. Well, that's really good to hear. That I hope very much to both go myself and encourage others to go. And I'm aware that the discussion of the white space, will be returning to that just at the end of our discussions, but it seemed very pertinent to what you were talking about. I've had another question here, which is, how do systems of artist protection and grants funds work, and how is security guaranteed? And yeah, I mean, it ties in, Kate, with what you talked about at the very beginning of your presentation, that obviously an artist's existence can be very precarious, and that you're vulnerable to attacks from all sides, even if you, as well as the inability to access basic materials. Kate, I don't know if you want to add anything more on that, or before we...
just to say that how important having these artist protection funds is, and also thinking about who is able to access these, because actually at the moment it's really difficult for anyone to get a flight out of Yemen. So there's a number of difficulties around how human rights defenders and artists are able to actually leave Yemen. So there needs to be an awful lot more support that goes into protecting human rights defenders and artists, and giving these the kind of amazing opportunities that Saber and Shatha has had. And I've been really lucky to live around the corner from you both. That's been lovely. But yeah, over to you two really on that question, I guess, and how that's been working.
Perhaps also we could hear from our colleague in Yemen as well, but let's go. I don't know if you're still with us.
Majed,
are you there?
Yeah, are you aware of programs to assist artists out of the country?
Yeah, there is the Arab AFAC, Arab Fund for Arts and Culture. Yeah, and also the EU works through some funds in the Arab region for this purpose.
Yeah, and one of our recommendations was that these programs need expanded, and that Yemen needs to be sort of on the priority list.
Yes. If I may add, please, it's worth mentioning that such programs may take long time for the artist to be hosted or relocated in a safe environment. So for our current fellowship, the Arts Protection Fund, it took us for nearly 2 years until we have been relocated here. So it is important for the human rights organizations that works locally in Yemen or internationally as well, to document the violations against art and artists, and also to provide the shelter for those who really needed the instant rescue, for them to be relocated or to take the defense beside the artists, because on those days we remember the 4 months of the whole cyberbullying campaign, and that picture that you just have seen. It was in everywhere, and we were hiding, and we went to a safe place, and we applied for several organizations that we have to be relocated because our life is in danger. But it is useless. Almost all of them useless and locally. But at the same time, we applied for such opportunities and residencies from the Arts Protection Fund, from other also residencies, and but it takes a long time. So you can even like access the website of the Arts Protection Fund, which is under the IIE, the International the Institute of International Education, IIE.org. You will find the program of the Arts Protection Fund and how threatened artists can apply for residencies, as well. And most importantly, you will find also the some guidelines on how to protect yourself, or at least to avoid the risk of being harmed during doing your art.
Thank you very much. Sadly, we're going to have to stop in a few minutes, so I'm going to have to draw the discussion to a close, but thank you to everyone who sent questions in. And apologies if we didn't get time to address your question, but I found this conversation fascinating. Just before I hand back to Saber, Radhya, do you have anything you want to add at this moment on any of the things we've discussed? Very briefly.
I'd just like Shada said that everyone has the right to be safe. And just from another angle, we are all in Yemen safe by accident, and you cannot relocate a nation. So the civic space is shrinking in Yemen. And I hope there are going to be also a lot of work in order to keep this space and make it bigger, and to make Yemen safe again for Yemenis, with having these urgent actions for those can say have an imminent threat and need to leave. But I want to be safe in Yemen.
Great, thank you. All power to elbow, and all elbows, and yes, the answer is yes. Saber, I'm going to hand over to you now for our last little insight. Saber and Shatha.
Sorry again?
I'm handing over to you now, because my understanding is you're going to talk a little bit about, because we're going to finish now, you're going to introduce the final piece of music and a short film about the White Canvas, the award-winning exhibition. I'm not sure who was speaking, but I'll hand over to both of you and you can help us.
Yes, I think Shada will start explaining about the White Canvas.
Okay, thank you very much.
The White Canvas exhibition is was the first exhibition that I made here in Edinburgh since my last one in 2019 that held in Yemen. So I highlighted my series that I've made during my fellowship here in IASH. It consists of the family series. I try to represent the emotions of the Yemeni families and how they cope to obtain the basic necessities like electricity, gas, and water, and so on. So I participated also with 4 of my paintings from the family series, and luckily got selected to be for the Joan Byrne Award. And if you go through my paintings of the family series, you will notice one fully white painting that only painted in white, and which is I wanted to talk about a family that living a neighborhood living in next door to mine. So whenever I look to that window, I see children look at me smiling and waving to me. Unfortunately, in 2015, that house got 2 airstrikes, and the 5 family members have gone, consist of a mom and a dad and 3 children. So I painted the white canvas just to remember this family along with the Saber music. I've chosen the white color just to represent maybe it's a dream, or maybe it's a piece, or maybe they are in a better place now. So I'm going to let you see the families series paintings and Saber's music.
Thank you. just coming. Thanks for your patience. I think Jane is just helping us to see this exhibition. Jane, let us know if that's not going to work.
Sorry, I'm having difficulty sharing that film. I'm not sure exactly why.
Don't worry.
I'll have another go.
We'll have one more go, and if it doesn't work, we may just have to save it and encourage you all to come and see the exhibition in October. And we can also send around a link so you can watch the film perhaps in another time. I found it, though. Let's just hold on for a moment later. There's no immediate rush. So thanks, Jane, for trying. Of course, I know this was working before our beginning, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will work when we're all watching it.
Did you see the pictures then come up?
No, not yet.
I didn't see anything. It's weird.
Don't worry. Shall we? I think to keep to time, sadly, unless I'll give us one more go, but we will have to stop if that doesn't work. I've got the catalogue in front of me, and if you told me one picture, I could show one more picture. Oh no, here we are. Okay, great. Patience is a virtue. Here we go. Well done. Thanks, Jane.
Eliana, I think you needed to turn on share sound at the beginning in order to hear the sound, because we can't hear the sound. You can see the pictures. Do you want to give it another try, Eliana? Because that was looking good. It just at the beginning you've got to share the sound at the bottom.
Yeah, let's try it again.
Sorry, everyone.
The fact that hardly anyone has left the room shows that I think there's an appetite to stay beyond our end time just to see this very short 2 or 3 minute film. So if you're able to put it on for us, that would be great. I'm not sure who's doing this, but
there doesn't seem to be any sound indication on at my end. So Jane, I'm apologies.
Can I make a suggestion that we, if necessary, we play it and Shatha and Saber, you could talk as the pictures.
I think I've got it. I think I've got it. Hold on.
Oh, great. Okay. Otherwise, Shatha, you can play the piano.
No, it's still not.
Okay. Now, I think I'm going to be just as...
I have a suggestion here. I have put on the chat section, there is a link for the catalog digital as a PDF.
Yeah, great.
In which you can find all the paintings, and as well there is a QR code that goes to the music.
Lovely. I wonder whether we could just very quickly, if we can see it, because this is a unique opportunity, maybe we could just show it through and you comment on what we're seeing. How does that sound? Shatha, would you be happy to do that?
Yes, you can explain about the paintings when they...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't have to be in great detail. We'll just go through it as is and just say 1 or 2 lines if you want to, and if not, we can just look at it in quiet. Mm-hmm. Silence is also musical.
Yeah. This is family number 1. Mm-hmm. And this is family number 2.
Like father and holding his...
Yeah. Yeah. I just named the paintings family. This is family number 3. And this one I can explain here. It is it moves.
By numbering the families.
Numbering the families because in media we don't talk about these people and how they suffer. We just number them. Certain numbers just died. Certain numbers got an airstrike. So we don't know actually. I mean, we don't realize that these numbers are actually human beings and their families. And this is actually number 8, a woman holding her child, looking for food, shortage of food. and this one I explained it before. These are above each other are scared, and you see the black bulb. It means like no electricity. These are striving for a water drop, shortage of water. And this is, I call it the last sopa. They are gathering on one plate, and these are trying to reach for a fruit. And these also are looking for a plate, which is hard to reach. And these are in lines for the gas cylinder. It resembles for the shortage of gas. And there was a family here, the white canvas.
Thank you so much. That's really powerful. Hearing you reflect on it as well. So I'll definitely try and watch it with the music, because obviously that's part of. And Saber, was that your music playing?
Yes, my music. It's called White Canvas.
Yeah, okay, great. Now, I think we should honor the time. Sadly, I would very much like to go on with the conversation, but I think we should stop here in a moment. But firstly, I'd like to say a huge thank you to you all for being here, for joining the conversation this evening. To Radhya, thank you so much for your work, and we really hope all goes well with the Nobel Peace Prize. And Kate, and I want to keep getting, is it help me with the pronunciation?
Majid.
Majid, okay. Thank you for joining us very much. And thank you for your excellent report, which I do recommend everyone to read. And also thank you so much to Shatha and Saber as well. It's been fantastic to learn about your work, both here in Edinburgh, but also of course in Yemen as well. So I point out that you'll see on the chat that there are a number of opportunities in which you can continue the conversation and find out more about some of the things we've discussed. There's also the opportunity, if you are able to support some of the work of the Peace and Justice Network, either by becoming a member or even helping with the crowd funding of the Peace Cranes exhibition, please do that. I know it'd be hugely valued and helpful for what's been an inspiring exhibition there in at St. John's Church, and do try and have a chance to get there. Is there anything else that I need to say? I'm now turning to Heather or to David, except to point out this is one of a number of conversations and events that are going on, and I know there's one going on in October related to Sherbinol that might be well of interest, but those details will be circulated to you. Any other things I should say apart